It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts. I'm Kat.
I'm Joe.
And today we are talking about Masaaki. I assume it's Masaaki because he's got two A's.
Maybe.
Middle part of his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, Yuasa. We're talking about Mind Games. Say 2004.
Oh, it's just Mind Game.
All right.
There's only one game being played here, Kat.
Just one.
And it's on the audience.
Accurate. Mind Game is Yuasa's directorial debut.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in swinging.
Oh, boy, does he.
With some incredibly surreal mix medium of really, really strange, choppy line drawing and live action and some rotoscoping and some photorealistic stuff that gets mixed in really haphazardly. I was trying to figure out like if there was any kind of rhyme or reason to when that was being brought in, but every time it was so disturbing for me.
Yeah. The first time it happened, I was like, whoa. But like, Kat missed it because I don't know what happened. You were probably
blinked
taking a note
or something. Yeah.
But I was like, I looked over, I was like, did you see that? And she was like, no. And I got up, I rewound it so that she could see. And then we both shuddered in horror. Little did we know that it was going to happen throughout this entire movie. So we had to strap in and get used to that rotoscope, monochrome, weird animation, like choppy storyboard looking. What's it called where it's like not storyboard, but it's not fully animated?
I know what you mean. I don't know the actual word for it though.
Dang it. Yeah. But it was weird, man.
You know, it's funny because there were moments where it would go into much more fluid animation, and it was usually in some more surreal parts where you're looking at it and you're like, this is complex movement. Like it's one of those moments where you're like, well, he's capable. Like,
yeah.
He could do it. Chooses not to.
Yeah.
You know, very, very specifically an artistic choice, you know, but sometimes it almost feels like an experimental thesis film from an animation degree.
I agree completely. He was just trying to throw he's like, oh, you want that type of animation? I'm just going to throw every type of animation that you could possibly think of into this Mind Game movie. And I think that you also had a quote where he was saying something about like, you know, I feel like Japanese audiences, they can handle a bunch of different kind of weird animations. So here's the quote. Instead of telling it serious and straight, I went for a look that was a bit wild and patchy. I think the Japanese animation fans today don't necessarily demand something that's so polished. You can throw different styles at them and they can still usually enjoy it. So that's how we felt about making this movie.
I mean, that shines through pretty hard.
Oh, yeah.
Just not giving a shit about whether anyone's going to understand it. You know, there's a lot in this that are visual metaphors that I feel like might have been lost on me. And, you know, this movie's bookended by these very fast montages, which is, you know, again, very experimental where you have, you know, maybe 2 seconds to kind of figure out what's going on in a scene. And it's very disjointed and it jumps around and you're trying to kind of piece it together. When it opens with it, it's especially confusing because you haven't seen any of these characters yet. You have zero context whatsoever. But then there were some interesting moments as you were watching it where you'd be like, oh yeah, I saw that as like a flash that came up, you know, in the beginning montage. And at the end, there's some of the same flashes, but then also some new ones that are kind of telling the story as it's continued past the last scene. But then it also is jumping back like way into the past.
Yeah, some of the scenes at the end are altered from the one in the beginning. It's like a similar, it's the same type of thing, but some of them are a little bit different. And it shows like character backstories and
kind of new information.
yeah. But that doesn't, I mean, when you get thrown into that scene immediately upon watching this, like I thought that it was going to be something like, oh, this is the entire movie just condensed and we're going to live through it now.
Yeah.
Through the entirety of the hour and 42 minutes that the movie is. But that's not what it was. It was a little bit different. There are some moments in those montages that are actually in like the plot of the movie, and you kind of get to see characters interacting through those montages, but you don't know that they're the characters yet at the beginning. So it's
and there are a couple of things. And now that I'm thinking about it a bit more deeply, there is something we'll talk about, I'm sure, in the spoilers section, that the outcome actually changes.
Yeah.
Based on what you see in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
and then what you see at the end. God, do you want to try and do a synopsis?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think I can.
Okay.
Because it's such a weird movie. Like,
Okay, let me try.
I wanted to see let's see what something else says about it. Okay.
All right.
Let's see what.
Can I try first?
Yeah, you can try.
Okay. So Nishi
Mm-hmm.
is a bit of a loser who still has a crush in his adulthood on his childhood girlfriend, with whom he never actually kissed because he was too shy. But they had a bit of a thing. And she's going to marry another guy. And he doesn't have the courage to say anything about it. And they end up in a bar in a weird situation that gets them involved with the Yakuza, and he kind of has to step up.
Yes. You know, that would be a great synopsis if the second that's a great synopsis of the first
For a movie you
quarter
wish
of
you'd
the
seen.
movie. Yeah, for the first quarter of the movie.
Well, yeah, and then saying the rest of the movie is kind of spoiling it.
Yeah, but we'll
and
talk
their
about
involvement with the Yakuza ends up trapping them in a situation that becomes incredibly surreal.
Yeah, there we go. It goes
Did we get it?
down a
Was that time?
completely different path than you think it's going to go.
Yeah. It starts out like a Tarantino movie. Where there's a lot of like sudden, violent, shocking things that you wouldn't really expect to happen. And then it ends up as the visual equivalent of experimental jazz.
I was going to say that I felt like at times this movie didn't need to have words. Like it felt like a silent film at some point.
Like a pantomime.
Yeah, like it was very weird. Like there were a lot of visual metaphors. You could tell what was going on even if you didn't have anybody speaking, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like because there's so much of it is experimental. They even have like jazz, which is like the, calling card of experimental wankery. Like
Sure.
this movie is like a lot of wankery, I feel like. And it's a lot of wankery.
There's a little of that for sure. I mean, I think that it's cool to get experimental and to be a little artsy and to be a little out there. But I think that at some point you're actually just kind of obscuring things. And it's a crutch that people can use when they don't actually know how they want to tell the story or where the story should go. And there are things about this film that I liked, and there were moments where I was like, oh, this is insane, but we still have a plot. Like I'm still following this. And then it falls into this surreal hole for a while. And I was just like, is this a metaphor for something? And I've got some theories. But yeah, in the end, I think it could have done more to stick with having a plot and being more understandable while still honoring that nature wacky, that like wacky thing that it has going on. I don't know. I think that it's almost just as douchey to be like, I think this should have been more understandable. This should have been more easy for me to understand as a story. But I also think that that's true.
I'll say that, yeah, it does have a plot, but it seems like, this is his directorial debut for a movie, I guess. It just seems like he was like, I'm going to show you how fucking weird I'm going to get and how experimental I can be. And that's what I don't like about it. Like, I'm down with dude, I love Satoshi Kon. His shit's super experimental and weird.
But he brings it back. Like,
yes.
I think that's the sort of magic of his storytelling. Although he lost it a bit in what's his series called?
Oh, Paranoia Agent.
Paranoia Agent. He loses it a little bit in Paranoia Agent.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, he does manage to keep it together so that you have all these weird experimental things and a lot to think about that's non-linear as part of the narrative. But yeah, this goes to a wild, wild place.
Yeah, that's why I said it's wankery. Like, this reminds me of a song that would have like a 7-minute long guitar solo in it. Mm. And like it will come back to the main rhythm and all that shit, but it's just so self-indulgent. And I just...
Like a jam band.
Yeah, not even...
Like going to a Grateful Dead cover band concert.
Yeah. Like...
I did that once. It wasn't great.
Oh, God. Why would you?
Somebody invited me.
Gross.
And I needed friends. Yeah. So I also felt like this reminded me of, how sometimes there'll be an album that comes out and then people will be like, oh, and each song has like a weird animated music video. And if you watch them all together, it has like a narrative, but it's all very artsy and very surreal. And like, this was like watching one of those from start to finish.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that as well. Like, it was kind of like, and I don't really like Radiohead, but people fucking love Radiohead. This reminded me of like a Radiohead album where it's like so much of their stuff is so self-indulgent, or like Mars Volta too.
Oh, God, I haven't thought about Mars Volta in so long.
Like, I love some Mars Volta songs. But then they have songs that are like 18 minutes long, and like 3 to 4 minutes of it is just like a guy like... It's just like, fuck you, dude. Like, why are you taking me down this road? Like,
yeah, I mean...
Tighten it up.
I remember talking to a friend of mine who had gone to visit our mutual friend, who the mutual friend had gone to art school. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how'd that go? Like, how was it? And he was like, well, we went to this party in a Brooklyn apartment, and a bunch of people were on acid, and then somebody was just dropping pencils onto a projector. like one of those old school projectors where you put the sheet of paper or like the transparency on it. Mm-hmm. And he said that somebody was and there was just like experimental music playing, so it was just dropping pencils onto this projector. And like, this movie's like that party.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have so many different analogies for this movie.
As I was watching, I kept getting more in my head, and that's why I was like, man, I wish I'd written more stuff down, because I just kept having these like, this is like, know.
No, I mean, the one that I just kept coming back to, I was like, this feels like a never-ending fucking guitar solo. That it's like, yeah, technically it's great. Technically, like, wow, you're an amazing guitar player. You can solo, and it's great. But nobody wants to sit and listen to that for forever.
But apparently they do, because
that's what I was 100% just about to say.
On Rotten Tomatoes.
Just about to say that. 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb.
And it's like a 92% audience score or critic score or something.
It's got a cult following. Like, it won a bunch of awards. Satoshi Kon loves this movie, apparently.
So we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be something that's going to piss off the people that listen to this. Like, if they're like, oh my God, they're reviewing Mind Game? That's going to be great. And then we're just like, it is fucking like a long ass bullshit Radiohead song.
I think this film has some merit, but I do think it's absurd to to just fully sing its praises. But it definitely, it's doing something. Like there are some points being made, and it stands out from the crowd for sure.
Yeah, it is a big swing. I'll give it that. Yuasa was swinging for the fences with this mofo. He was trying to hit it out of the state, not just out of the ballpark, not just out of the city. He was trying to hit it out of the state.
I think geographically, as far as Japan's concerned, state doesn't mean much.
You know what I mean.
Sure. Province, island, maybe just off the whole island.
Don't get all Japanese geographical with me. You knew what I was taking the metaphor to that place, bringing it to Japan reality. You knew what I was talking about. Fuck you. Well, we talked about the animation. The soundtrack's actually pretty sweet.
Soundtrack's great.
Soundtrack's pretty neat.
And really varied.
It
really matched a lot of what we were watching. Because this is kind of like an acid trip Fantasia at times. And it had the music that supported some of that wacky animation. Like it worked really well with what was going on.
Yeah, I dug the soundtrack a lot. It was pretty fun. Even when it, like at the beginning of the movie, there's like these like really bluesy rock songs that are going on. And those are like, I mean, that's just kind of like the music that I enjoy. So I was like, oh, okay, Mind Game. All right. But then even towards the latter half of the movie where things are a bit more soft and somber and like weird, and we get to the jazzy stuff, and that was interesting and experimental. But then there's also like these moments of just like a single bongo drum or something.
Or like really, really layered percussion. That was interesting. Or, staccato piano stuff that I was like, is this a classical piano piece? I can't tell. At the very start, there was also some very weird electronic music that actually like put me super on edge. But it was a scene that, was very violent and edgy, and you really didn't know what was going on, what was going to happen next. Very disturbing. So that music really worked well for that. I'm just thinking back to me watching this movie. It wasn't that long ago. It was,
15 minutes ago.
Yeah. But I was reading just one of the comments on the Rotten Tomato page. Said something like, "Just relax and let Yuasa take you wherever the hell he wants." And there were moments where I'd just be like, "Wait, what? I mean, what are you going to do?" Yeah. Like, you just have to chill. Yeah. Like, so many times I just like put my hand on my face in some way, maybe both hands, and then just like let a hand drop to the couch. I was a little shell shocked a couple of times. But if you have any chance of enjoying this film, it definitely is to go with the current. like there's no point in watching this film and trying to like swim upstream against what's happening or trying to make it make sense in every moment. You really do have to relax and let it take you wherever the fuck it's going. And then decide how you feel about it. But if you're not ready for that or not in the mood for that, then this is not going to be a great film for you.
Yeah. Well, what I will say about Mind Game is after watching basically all of Yuasa's other movies at this point, we watched Lou Over the Wall, Ride Your Wave, The Night is Short, Walk On Girl, or whatever. I would have never expected that this movie was one of his movies. Like, usually you can tell there's a through line, there's an animation style, or like there's a storytelling style between all of these directors, and you can tell like, oh, that's a Satoshi Kon movie. Oh, that's the guy that did Your Name or whatever. This one is such a sticking out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
I was like, this is the same guy. Like, even just the story points that are going on in this movie that are just like so violent and disgusting. And like, then you think back about, we reviewed Ride Your Wave recently, and that's like such a sugary, saccharine, crazy. I mean, it's also wild and weird.
And very dark if you think about it.
Yeah, very dark. But nothing of what that movie is resembles what this movie is.
This movie did have moments where it reminded me of The Night is Short, Walk On Girl.
okay, well, that's his next movie after this, but that happened. So this movie apparently came out in 2004. The Nice Short Walk On Girl came out in like 2017. So he had a while to think about what he did.
Wait, he had nothing in between those?
I mean, he was directing like a couple of episodes of anime and like short movies. Like I think he directed a couple of like anthology things. He had one called like Tatami Galaxy, and he has a short film about a pro wrestler that falls in love with a nun. But everything else was like a couple of episodes or series, but no movies.
So wait, so it was 2017 for The Night Short Walk On Girl, and then Lou Over the Wall happened, and then 2019 was Ride Your Wave?
Lou Over the Wall and Night is Short, Walk On Girl happened the same year, apparently. 2017.
I wonder if that's, but I mean, like, if you look on Amazon, it says this movie's 2018. I wonder if there's something like that with The Night is Short, Walk On Girl.
I don't know. But, I mean, on his list of works on Wikipedia, Mind Game is 2004, Night is Short, Walk On Girl is 2017, Lou Over the Wall is 2017.
Weird.
Devilman Crybaby 2018, Ride Your Wave 2019. And Devilman Crybaby, that is an insane anime series too. Like, but
I mean, that's really prolific. I mean, and Yuasa's coming out with another film, which is supposed to be released in the U.S. at the end of May.
yeah,
So that's next month.
we'll be checking that out.
Yep.
It's already been out in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like this movie doesn't really resemble his later stuff at all, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I think with The Night is Short Walk On Girl, there were some really sort of bizarre things that happen in it that are surreal and experimental. And same thing where I just those moments where I just put my hands on my face in some way and just looked at the TV and just like found my mouth agape. And then it was like, okay, you just have to relax and go with it. Like, it's just going to be fucking weird. And I think that with Night is Short Walk On Girl, it managed to keep it together and still kind of have a plot, even if there were some really, really strange things going on. But I was actually like, wait, was there a whale in The Night is Short Walk On Girl? And is that like a connection? And I couldn't remember why I thought that, but I think it was just a connection to water, because he seems to have water involved in a lot of his a lot of film, boats and
Very aquatic.
surfboards, and
Boats are his planes with Miyazaki.
yeah. So while I can totally see why you would say that it has no relation, if I saw it and you were like, you have to choose what director we've already seen a film from, who also directed this, and I would have guessed him.
I would not have.
Yeah.
Never in a million years.
Not even in multiple choice.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Shall we get into spoilers then?
You want to talk about how amped you are to talk about it?
I don't even know how amped I am. I
don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah, by the end of this movie, we were just like, Kat was like, I feel like I got beat up.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, my mind.
And I had said to you as well, like, I was like, we're gonna need to do that thing. What do you call it when you watch something else so that you can wash your brain off? and she was like, a palate cleanser? I was like, yes. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
The thing where you wash your brain off.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm
all
ready.
right. Let's get into spoilers here.
Let's spoil it.
They wouldn't spoil this, right?
Oh,
You
God,
can't spoil this.
spoilers,
Right?
don't.
No spoiler talk. Spoiler talk. Anime movie podcast. Spoiler talk.
So Nishi is trying to confess his love to Mion, but he's too much of a coward to do it. So she's like,
Is he trying to confess?
well, he is about to, or like he wants to in his head, but he can't because he's such a coward. And then Mion knows that, and she basically just like makes a fool out of him.
What do you mean?
Like when he's trying to take off her shoe or whatever in that rain shrine or whatever, she's basically like, would you be mad if I married somebody else? And then he's like, in his mind, he has the imagination of confessing his love to her And then she's like, you know what? I'll be with you. Don't worry about it. I'll give you a chance to be better than the guy that I'm going to marry. But that's only in his mind. Because when she tells him that she's going to marry somebody else, he just kind of takes it and he's like, well, I hope that he's a good guy for you. And then she's like, God, you're still pathetic. I always knew you didn't have it in you.
That's not what she says. She says, she's like, I guess you don't feel about me the way you used to feel.
No, she said, like, you still haven't changed, have you?
I mean, but she does, like, literally in the subtitles,
Well, yeah.
She says, like, you don't feel about me the way you used to then.
Yeah, she said, if only you felt the way that you used to. Which is, I felt like it was kind of like, if you would have confessed your love right now, maybe you would have had a shot. That's how I took it.
Yeah, I mean, I read it differently, but also basically it seemed like she was fishing for it, that she wanted him to, that she did want him to say something. She was kind of hoping.
Yeah, which is rude as fuck.
Well, is it?
Yeah.
What do you think would have been the better way to go about it?
I mean, it's like she's going to get married to this other guy and she wants Nishi to confess her love just so she can have it.
I don't know. I mean,
what does she want?
It struck me as this like I think I'm going to marry this person unless you give me a reason not to.
Oh.
Like looking for that, like I'm still kind of burning a candle for you, and I'm testing the waters to see if you feel the same way, because I don't know if I want to marry this person.
Okay, well then immediately afterwards, Nishi's like, no, I've always loved you. I love you forever. Like, I've always been in love with you. And she's like, ha ha, loser. Let's go to my dad's restaurant. You know what I mean?
I mean, I wonder if in that moment she doesn't believe him, or she's like, well, if you really felt that way, you would have said that earlier.
You would have said it literally 2 seconds ago, but now that 2 seconds have passed, so fuck you. Like what?
Oh my God. But yeah, I didn't get the impression. I was confused as to why her dad was there. Because it seemed like she was like, let's just like, do you want to like go get something to eat? And he's like, yeah, sure, let's do that. But it wasn't like, do you want to go to my dad's restaurant? Do you want to go to my dad's bar? But it turns out her sister is working behind the bar and her dad is sitting at the bar. And then
he just starts telling his stories of being a
Casanova
playboy back in the day to Nishi. And Nishi takes great offense to this. He's like, you're surrounded by all these beautiful women in this bar. Like, these are the most beautiful women this side of the Mississippi. Mississippi's not in Japan, Joe. Sorry, I don't know any Japanese rivers. But anyway, so he's like, how could you do that? How could you cheat on your wife? Like, the mother of these two beautiful women. Like, these are the most beautiful women. You're so lucky to be around them. And
I thought he was also talking about like, I can't believe you've gotten with so many women. Didn't he say like I went to the place where you were born because I thought there would be so many beautiful women there because the number of beautiful women you say that you've been with, and I wanted to see the source.
Yeah, but he's like, I went to Tokyo, I went to Kyoto, I went to Osaka, I went to all these other. I had 5 people in Tokyo, I had 3 in Osaka, and then Nishi's like, what the fuck, are you serious, dude? And then the daughters are just sitting there like listening to all this Lothario talk.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. And yeah, so you keep hearing kind of like Nishi's like inner thoughts occasionally. And for some reason, like Mion's dad is like, you know, you should really be marrying Nishi. Like, he's the one for you. And you're like, why is her dad saying that? And that's like right before like her future husband walks in, her fiance, I guess.
Yeah. Rio?
Yeah.
That's his name? Yeah, it's Rio. So then Rio meets Nishi. They're having a little chat at the bar. The dad's in the corner, and then the 2 Yakuza show up, Atsu and the other guy, Aniki, which just means brother, but whatever. And that's definitely not how it's pronounced. I'll just call him bro, because that's what Atsu calls him. Is this the worst podcast we've ever done?
This train is getting very derailed.
Yeah, well,
Anyway.
it's hard to keep it straight, dude.
It is. And this is the part that actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So they show up and they're looking for Myeon and Yang's father because Atsu is pissed that he stole his girlfriend. Something about the World Cup because he's a soccer player on the Japanese
for the World Cup,
national team.
And he seems to be saying that their dad stole the girlfriend. Well, said that he raped the girlfriend, which I don't think is what's actually going on. And stole the tickets to the World Cup. So he seemed like he wanted his tickets back, or maybe his girlfriend had the tickets and now she's going with the dad instead or something. I don't know.
Possibly because the dad is a charming mofo.
Yeah,
as we found out.
Atsu is fuming and seems to be an insane person.
Yeah,
and they both have guns.
Yes. So then they start making threats to Yang and they're like, "Hey, where's this guy?" And Yang is like, "He's not here. He said that he's gonna be on vacation." Meanwhile, her dad is like cowering underneath of the table. Mm-hmm. And then Atsu is just getting more and more furious. And then he eventually like bursts his soccer ball that he's been carrying around. And he's like, "I can't take this anymore." I don't know how he gets to trying to rape.
Yeah, he starts waving a gun around and he grabs Myeon by the boobs and pulls her towards him.
It's like, "Hey, you got some nice boobs there."
Yeah. And she punches him in the face and hits him pretty hard because his nose starts bleeding. And so he's furious and he's approaching her, and her fiance gets up, swings, and fucking totally misses.
Oh, yeah.
And
he gets pistol whipped. Just
airballing with a fist, you know? And then he gets pistol whipped and his hair pops off.
Yeah.
I guess he has a toupee.
Yeah.
And, but there's like a sound effect for like popping off. And then she's rushing to his aid. And then he's like, "Well, too bad that guy got knocked out cold because he would understand, how I feel if I could rape his girlfriend in front of him and then somebody could relate to me." And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, movie.
Yeah.
Slow your roll.
Same guy that directed Lou Over the Wall.
Although I have to say briefly that I think just having a bar scene that was weird also just reminded me a little bit of The Night Short Walk On Girl. Mm-hmm. I mean, very different tones. Mm-hmm. For sure. Mm-hmm. Whole time that this is happening, Nishi is cowering in a ball and like crying and hasn't done anything. And except, he's doing the same thing that the father's doing, except in plain sight, essentially. And then Myeon gets grabbed and her clothes are getting pulled off. It's actually a really, really disturbing, almost rape scene. Mm-hmm. And he's even like talking about like seeing her pussy and telling Nishi like, "You want to see it too, don't you? Like, come see it." And I was just like, this is really disturbing. Yeah. Like, this is like trigger warning level, like the most disturbing rape or attempted rape scene I've ever seen in anime. I mean, because the stuff that's in, Ninja Scroll, mm-hmm. And the other movies by that same director, like they're almost like, those are disturbing in their own ways, but they're almost campy compared to like what's going on here.
Because it's usually like a monster that's doing it in those movies, I think.
Yeah.
Like in Ninja Scroll, it's like that giant rock guy. In Wicked City, it's like a tentacle monster. Well, then there's all those other demons that like kind of gang rape that lady. But
which is like, disturbing, but it also feels like it's removed. It's like this weird fantasy world, and even though a lot of this is so surreal and some of the animation is so weird, like I didn't feel removed.
Yeah, from that. It felt very real because it is just 4 people in the bar. Yeah. Like this is something that could happen in like our real life, and that's what was so fucking, and it was just so. Like the language was very graphic about it.
Super graphic. Just really, really harsh. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and there's, when you're seeing Nishi in these situations, there are all of these situations that just like are really testing the limits of a person. You know, if the girl that you've always been in love with, you know, you find out that she's marrying somebody else and you've kind of like lost your chance, and you know that's pretty soul crushing. It changes the trajectory of your life, and what you thought your life might be is just like disappearing. And then also, you know, the woman that you love is getting violated.
Yeah.
And you're in this situation where you feel helpless and you're cowering. And like, you know, to me, it's these like huge life moments that are like kind of like knocking on the door to be like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, do you step up, or do you cower, or do you go away from the situation? I mean, and maybe that's true of all movies. You have these like big dramatic situations, but I felt specifically in this movie that it was doing that, and it was purposefully doing that to show him as a character for one thing, and show that he's not stepping up in these situations.
Yeah. I mean, it's also crazy because Atsu has been waving a gun around. He already knocked out Ryo, who Nishi even makes mention of, like, this guy's in better shape than me. He's got a good body. He's very charming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of understandable that Nishi should be the cowering there, because he already just saw Ryo get knocked out. And he's like, what am I going to do if that guy, like, he's way better than me. Like, I can't fucking do anything.
But it's like, I mean, Mion punched the guy in the face.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and is trying to fight him off.
Yeah.
In the situation that she's in, and and he doesn't, you know, think to step up or like help in that moment.
Yeah, and even Mion is like looking over at him at a certain point. She's like, Nishi, are you still here? Will you do something?
Oh, that was fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah. And he's just there cowering. And then this is when Atsu gets up and he's like, Nishi, is that you? Is that this little ball over here? This little fucking cowering piece of shit? And then he puts his gun right up to his asshole. And he's like, I'm going to... He says some wild shit about raping Mion again. And then Nishi's like, gets so mad and he's screaming, I'm going to hurt you. But before he can get to hurt... Before he can complete saying hurt, Atsu shoots him in the asshole all the way up through the brain and kills him.
And shortly after that, Joe and I exchanged some brief first opinions about the film, because this is like 20 minutes in. Yeah. Maybe.
This is not far into the movie.
And we've talked about it for about that amount of time. But, you know, I was like, do you still think that Ride Your Wave is the most bonkers movie you've ever seen?
Yeah.
And he was like, I mean, that guy just got shot through the asshole, up his spine and through his brain. And I was like, yeah, I know. I can't unsee that.
Yeah.
And then you see it over and over and over again in the next scene.
Yeah, because part of Nishi's afterlife limbo area is he's just reliving his cowardice in his final moments, and he like can't take it anymore, and he's just like, this is awful, I can't stand this. Like, and then God is even mocking him. He's like, you're a turd, you're a piece of bird shit, you're less than dog dick. And Nishi's like, I get it, dude, I get it, I'm lame, I'm a loser. And then God is like, do you get it though? Do you get that you're bird shit? You're less than dog cum? And he's like, yes. And so he comes face to face with God. This is 25 minutes into the movie now.
Yeah.
We saw like some normal anime shit, like a guy that's scared to confess his love. Then we saw some violent, crazy
very
anime
Tarantino
shit. Then we see a guy get shot up the asshole, killed. Now he's talking to God. And God's like, yeah, man, you're a loser. Sucks to suck, basically, but you're dead now. And if you go over to that red void over there, you're going to disappear. That's it. And Nishi's like, that's it? Are you serious? There's no afterlife? There's nothing? And God's like, what do you want from me, dude? Like, you're a loser. Like,
he's like, that way to the void.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then he's like, and can you hurry it up too? Because I got a date. And Nishi's like, you got a date? You're God. And he's like, yeah, hurry up, man. You just walk over into that void. And Nishi's walking and he keeps looking back like, is this really it? And God's like, yeah, that's really it, dude. He keeps walking, he keeps turning back around like, you sure? You sure there's nothing else? And God's like, I'm sure, I'm God. And then Nishi looks over his shoulder like one more time, and then he sees a blue void. And he's like, wait, if the red void means that I'm just going to disappear forever, the blue void must mean that I get reincarnated or something. I'm going to fucking run to the blue void. Fuck God. So he runs.
I'm not done yet.
Yeah. So he runs past God, and God's like, what are you doing? I told you to go to the red void. And she's like, I'm not done yet. Not yet. My magic is never giving up. And he starts running to the blue void, and God's chasing him. He's like, you sure you want to do this? You don't have the will to do it. You're a piece of shit. You're less than dog shit. And Nishi's like, no, I'm not done yet. I can't go out this way. And God's like, ooh, but it looks like you're disappearing. And he starts to disappear. And he's like, no, fuck that. I'm not disappearing. You're disappearing. You're dumb, God. And then God's like, oh, okay, all right. And then he finally makes it to like the breach of like the end where he just takes a final leap and goes back into living. And then God's like, you're a good one, Nishi. Get this.
God's like, hey, I'm rooting for you.
He's like, I'm on your side, buddy. Don't forget that. It's like 20 minutes ago, you were telling him to like evaporate forever. 20 minutes, 20 seconds.
Like, we got us a runner.
Yeah.
I'm into it. I respect that.
It's like, oh, okay. He's not just going to listen to me. Okay.
Oh, God. All right. So now we're in 26 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. So then he gets transported back to the exact moment where he gets the gun shoved up his butt.
Yep.
And this time around, he's got a different plan.
He clenches the shit out of his butt to hold that gun, and he disarms this man with his ass.
Yeah.
Which is something I think, maybe they teach in Krav Maga. I've never been, but if they don't, maybe they should.
We got to get on our squat game a bit more.
Yeah.
We got to do some hip thrusts to get that powerful of an ass.
Honestly, that's, new meaning for buns of steel.
Yeah. Because he stole the gun.
Yeah.
And there's steel.
Yeah. Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you. So then he just immediately turns around and he shoots Atsu point blank in the head, and the guy fucking drops. And the Yakuza guy with hair, who's literally just been like sitting at the bar chilling this whole time through the attempted rape, through this, moment of the gun to butt. And he's like, now, Nishi's now waving the gun and is like, give me your fucking car keys. I'm done being a loser. I'm done doing what people are like telling me to do. I'm not going to cower. Where are your fucking keys? Throws him the keys. And then he takes Mion, and they jump in this car. And now I kind of enjoy that they have this moment where he's being a little bit reckless.
Oh, yeah.
I think because he does feel kind of
empowered.
Yeah, and invincible in some ways. And there was somebody who made a comment earlier in the film, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was the dad talking about the problem with like kids today is they play too many video games. They think there's always a reset button.
Yeah.
And of course, we see.
Actually, I think that's happening as this car chase is happening.
Oh, it's during that phone call. And of course, he's just basically had a reset button press, like you would in a video game. So this car chase starts, and then we have this Yakuza boss, I guess. Yeah,
it looks like Uncle Fester from Addams Family. Yeah. And like his rotoscope is particularly horrifying. He looks horrifying. So weird and awful.
It calls him on a car phone that's in this like Yakuza guy's car.
Yeah, so after they steal the car, obviously the Yakuza guy that's still at the restaurant calls his Yakuza bros, and they all start chasing him, and there's like 9 cars on the chase. No other cars on the road at all. And fucking Nishi's just pedal to the metal. He's got Mion and Yang in car with him, and he's like, I'm fucking invincible. We're never going to get caught. I'm not going to live my life like a coward anymore. I'm going to live it like I'm the main character. And he is just driving so recklessly. Like there's one point before the car chase even starts where he's just like doing donuts in the middle of an intersection, like
For
a
no
four-way.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy that he has this moment where he's like, he has like, you see what he saw in an action movie once, which is like a car just like going onto its side and driving between two semis. And he's like looking at these two semis like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Because like I'm the character in the movie now.
Yeah, I
And he
love
does it and he
that.
just fucking ping pongs between these two semis and like barely makes it out. And that was very funny to me.
Yeah, and then once he makes it out, like he's all bloodied because it's a convertible.
Yeah.
So his head, everyone in the car's heads are like banging between these two cars, and then Mion's like, "I've got a nosebleed," and he's like, "So do I," and he's so pumped about it.
So the Yakuza set up this like fucking blockade on this bridge, and they're like, nobody's gonna get past this, but it also kind of sets up these ramps.
Yeah,
And so at the last moment, Nishi like turns off of this ramp and off the bridge, and all the Yakuza are like crashing into the top of this barricade. And then you don't really know what's going on, but it kind of, I thought for a moment, because the ocean starts to kind of like come up towards the car. I was like, maybe God's helping out now.
That's what I thought.
This is like a divine intervention thing. Turns out it's a whale.
yeah. An unseen whale comes up from out of the ocean and swallows the car, Nishi, Mion, and Yang whole.
Yep.
And they don't know where they are.
He thinks he's died again.
He thinks he's died again. He's like, "Oh, come on, not this again."
I thought they'd died.
Well, it was a similar animation to when he actually did first die. But then he turns on, flicks on a light, and the car's underwater, and then you see like a boat. And then he's like, "Oh, there's a boat over there." He's like, "You know what? Don't worry about this, guys. We're gonna get out of this. I talked to God. I have the reset button that the Yakuza boss says that nobody has. So I'm going to live my life like the main character. Because guess what? I am." And so he sees a boat with a flashlight and he's like, "Let's go over to that boat." So they go over to the boat and they were just like chilling on the boat for a little bit. And then something happens where he's talking to Mion. He's like, "Hey, I'm a pretty heroic guy now, right?" She's like, "Yeah, that's pretty crazy." He's like, "Can I see you naked?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Please?" She's like, "No." He's like, "With a cherry on top?" "No." And then an old guy comes. He's like, "Oh, company." Like an old guy just comes from out of nowhere. And he's like, "Oh, finally people are down
And he
here."
like grabs Nishi.
Yeah. And he's just like, "Thank God. I got a radio." And they're like, "A radio? We can finally reach the outside. We can talk to wherever we are and get out of here." But this old man has like a whole floating castle that he built in this whale's stomach somehow.
So many found objects, and he's clearly kind of just been making a life for himself there.
He's been down there for 30 years, he says.
Yeah.
How old would you guess he was?
Let's see, in anime years.
Let's say 70. Let's say 70.
Yeah? I was going to say like 65.
Okay. Well, that's close enough. Like, we don't know that they're in a whale yet. Like, we don't know until pretty much a lot further on that they're inside of a whale.
I actually didn't really kind of put into context how much time he'd spent there until there's a moment when we see Nishi look at a pillar and there's all these like
Yeah. Like he's marking off the days that he's been in the whale, and it's
what do you
just
call that? You do 4 lines and then
the cross through it. I don't think that there's an actual name.
Tallies.
Yeah, sure, tallies.
Tallies.
There we go.
Tallying it up, and then there's some like mad ramblings, like writing on another thing, and I was just like, oh man, this is there was no Wilson volleyball in this castaway situation. But once they're kind of here, they're experiencing like this amazing hospitality. He made like a whole like sushi layout, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's almost as good as like the sushi in New York," which I wondered if that's a joke for Japanese people.
Maybe.
You know, why would you be like, oh, the fanciest sushi is in New York City? But then they're explaining to him like, oh yeah, you know, there's like rotating sushi bars now. Sushi's getting westernized. And he's like rotating sushi, and these like sushis appear next to him and like rotate in circles. And then he's like, no, not like that. And he kind of like waves his thoughts away, which is kind of fun. But it's kind of nice that, you know, this guy has essentially been isolated for all of this time. And he's like, are there robots everywhere now? You know, because he doesn't know what's actually going on in the outside world.
Yeah. He's like a prisoner. Like if he does get out of the whale, like he's not going to know how to function in this society.
Oh, no, not at all. And he was a
30
criminal.
years.
So
Yeah,
it's
he
not
was a
like he knew
Yakuza.
how to function in it before.
Yeah. So
He was living outside of the law. And
he's asking, are there robots? And then Myeon's like, I just went down the robot aisle at the hardware store the other day. Like, I don't know if they were like having fun with him at that point, or if
well, we did see that the Yakuza boss had
He did
some
have a
kind of a like robot companion. Instead of like, you know, the evil man petting the cat.
Yeah.
It was this like robot companion.
it was a robot chewing on his ear.
Yeah. So bizarre.
But then he asks about flying cars. And
Yeah.
then you just see his imagination like, wow, the outside world must be really fucking cool. And then he gets really sad for a minute.
Yeah. I mean, and then he's explaining how he used to get really angry. He used to be, you know, really upset, get really depressed about the situation that he's ended up in here, because he sees, you know, the three of them going through these stages of grief, realizing that they've been, you know, kind of isolated from the rest of the world, you know, which in itself is kind of like a death.
Yeah.
A death, so to speak, socially, and on a number of other levels, because it's, you know, it's really the cessation of connections that kind of accounts for what happens to people socially when they think about death. But they kind of have this like pep talk from him where he's like, and you can be sad, or you can find ways to enjoy this. You know, like you can find a way to love your new home inside of this whale's belly.
Yeah.
And then there's like this montage of the fun times they have with some kind of prehistoric creature. And they're doing this like synchronized swimming, and it gets insane. And even more insane than the rest of this film is naturally. And I was kind of thinking about this in terms of, you know, if you're in this situation where you can kind of tread water and be with what is, and live in the present moment, and that does bring you a lot of peace, but then it's kind of in conflict with potential growth, because, you know, in growth you kind of have to push against, and you have to you know, do something differently than you've ever done it before in order to see different results. And it was interesting to watch how Nishi would be like, I'm going to try and fight it. I'm going to try and like get out of the whale. And then how he'd get defeated. And then he'd be like, okay, I'm going to be present. I'm just going to be with what is and enjoy what this is. And that felt like a big life metaphor to me about the way, you know, people can either like just be in their routine and going about their business and treading water. And then there are times where you're like, okay, I need to grow, or I need to make a shift in my life, and then you raise hell against, you know, the tsunamis that come in, and you get out of your comfort zone to like try and make a change. And I kind of wondered if that's what this whole whale situation was about.
I mean, that's what the whole movie is supposed to be about. But it's not like the old man was like necessarily happy, because we see flashbacks of him trying to escape the whale like throughout his entire time there.
Yeah.
Like you see him as a young man, like a middle-aged man, and even as an old man trying to get out. And he's like, I've never gotten out of the tidal wave, but maybe that's just like his yearly thing where he's like, oh, it's this time of year, let's try and escape.
And the tidal wave is whenever the whale gets hungry and it opens its mouth to feed. That's when all these objects come in that he's able to collect for, you know, to decorate his whole mad like kingdom that he's created of found objects. And that's also the opportunity to escape because the mouth is open, but it just happens to also be an up current situation if you want to try and escape.
Yeah. I don't know where the movie goes next.
Yeah. I mean, we spend so much time in in the belly of the whale.
The belly of the beast.
That, a lot happens. We have, one of the strangest sex scenes I've ever seen.
There are a lot of visual metaphors there.
A lot of crazy visual metaphors that actually almost become very funny.
Oh, yeah.
That actually had a lot of entertainment. And there's like a tsunami situation. And so the surface of this boat where they're having sex is shifting, and they're sliding all the way across like the top of the boat, and then it would cut to just the fucking wheels of a train going up a mountain, and then like a furnace with coal, and I'm like, I'm not sure what part of sex this is supposed to be, but I'm trying to follow.
Yeah, it was like a bunch of other random. It's like somebody slicing bread. It's just like a bunch of random intercut things, and then the way that they're animated while they're doing this sex scene is like colored pencilly and very fluid, and they
that
change
got really
colors.
Pretty.
They change colors a bunch. They fall into the water, and then it splashes, and then it goes to darkness, and it's just very trippy. But that was actually really pretty.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, man, and it was just weird to see because it was something that Nishi was hoping would happen for forever, and this is finally his moment, and then it seems like they're having sex for forever. Like, these visual metaphors go on for a long time, and then they finally finish, and then the old man and Yang are like, where the hell have you guys been? And they're like, we're up here, don't worry about us.
And then it's like, tee.
Yeah.
So eventually they make this plan that they are just gonna get out. And it was interesting to see kind of some of the doubts that came up, because they're like, oh, but fuck, when we get back out there, the Yakuza are still going to be looking for us.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a problem. But there's actually kind of a moving speech that Nishi has, that his pep talk for the reason why he wants to leave is just this like, it's just this amazing will to live speech.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't normally get a speech like that in any film like this that's like, oh, second chance, you should appreciate it. It's a wonderful life. They usually cite reasons for why they're so inspired now to live. And he's just like, I'm a huge piece of shit. I'm a loser. I am not contributing to the world, but I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I want to have agency, and I want to have the chance to turn things around or not. I don't care, but I want to be there.
Yeah.
And that was so fucking cool. I loved that speech. I thought that was so fucking great. And I've never heard anything in cinema like it.
Well, I think that he also ends it with like, we're either going to be weird and stupid and die out there, or we're going to die in here. So what do you want? You want to die in here, or you want to die out there? Then they start to like come up with this plan. It's like, well, how are we going to get out? We've never been able to get through the wave, because they have this like rowboat, and all of them are working in tandem to try and get through the wave. And they tried it once, and they got scared when the tidal wave was happening, and they just decided to turn back.
But this time they had a plan. They put together, they're like, oh, we have all these motors, because he's been collecting stuff that comes into the whale. And of course, it's like swallowed some boats before. So they put together a motor, and then they're like, but we don't have any fuel. And they're like, oh yeah, that car that got swallowed up with us. And they siphon fuel out of that vehicle. And so they put a motor on this rowboat, and they get oars. So they're working in tandem with the motor.
Yeah, and I think it might be my favorite scene, their escape out of the whale.
Really? Yeah, it's wild. I think it does a great job of making it the climactic scene.
Yeah, I feel like it did go on for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
It did go on for a very long time. So they start to they start to paddle, and they're like, all right, this is our last chance. They all kind of like have a moment with each other of like, all right, well, if we don't get out, because it's also revealed that the whale is dying. And if the whale dies, that means that they're going to die.
Yeah.
So they're like, all right, this is our last chance. Next time he tries to eat, we're getting out. So they're paddling. They have their moment with each other, and they just start paddling. And then the mouth opens. They're like, "All right, it's open. Everybody paddle the fuck out of this boat." So they're paddling, and they're like, they're working their asses off, dude. And then Nishi pulls the motor. He's got the motor working with the rowing as well. And then they're rowing so hard, and the tidal wave is coming, that the boat...
And then we keep flashing back to some random stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I didn't like, because I was like, okay, we've already seen so much stuff that's hard to kind of process. But like, why not just stay with this scene? Like, I would be fine with that.
Well, because they have a flashback to everybody's life before, or what everybody's going to be doing once they get out, or like their.
But there was that weird moment with the old man in the canopy, and something happens with him, and I didn't understand what was going on. There were like flashbacks to things happening inside of the whale, like while they were rowing initially. Anyway, that kind of bothered me. I liked the flashbacks later on. That are a part of this scene, that are kind of like flashing forward and flashing back. And that was super interesting to me. But just in that moment when they were first doing it, it was cutting really quickly in between the paddlers, which I really liked. And then it would intercut these little mini scenes that I didn't understand. I didn't get.
Yeah. So they row so hard that the boat explodes. Mm-hmm. And then Nishi turns around and he's like, "Fuck it, run." And then they just start like
fucking shrapnel, boat shrapnel.
They're running on top of boat shrapnel, like little pieces of the boat, pieces of whatever the whale is swallowing at the time. Like there's toys and stuff that are coming in. They're stepping on like marbles, and it's like propelling them forward and out of this whale's mouth.
And then people will trip, and then somebody will grab them and take their pants off. That happened a couple of times.
Yeah, I also thought that Yang was going to die. Because she fell like 3 times, it felt like. She fell once, and then Nishi saved her. Then she fell again, and then like something else happened where she finally got the will.
His pants off, and then something else pulls her pants off. She gets like caught on a buoy.
Yeah, she gets caught on a boat that the whale had saved, like the mast of a boat.
It was a mast of a boat. I thought it was a buoy with a mast, but
I don't know. But her underwear gets taken off. The old man, he falls and he trips down, and I thought that he was a goner.
I totally thought he was dead, and I was like, I'm actually a little bit sad about that.
But instead, the dinosaur that the whale had swallowed saves him and gives him like a kiss, and that propels him forward.
So bizarre.
So they're running on water, basically, so furiously, and then eventually they get out. But the whale's swallowing a car, and they like run over the car. The whale swallows a boat. They run over the boat. The whale swallows an airplane. They run over the airplane.
Then a tank.
The tank. Then missiles that some kind of aircraft or the tank shot, but it's behind the tank now. They run on top of the missiles.
And then an office building.
And then a skyscraper. And then they don't like run over the skyscraper. They run through. Well, Nishi's doing all. Nishi's through it.
Butt naked at this point, and he is running down this hallway through these cubicles of this floor of a skyscraper through an office and out the other side.
And then eventually they get to freedom. They jump out, and they're like 1,000 feet over this enormous bridge. It's like
they're like overlooking Tokyo.
Yeah, they're like 30,000 feet in the air. It seems like they're so high up, and they're looking out, and then they're just like, wow, all of the possibilities are ahead of us. They have all these flash forwards of like all this shit that I can do now, and all this stuff that all my dreams that I want to accomplish, I can finally do them now. And that's basically kind of where it ends.
Yeah, because you get a big montage of these possible, scenarios, and one of them involves like Yakuza chasing Mion, and in the opening montage she gets her leg caught in this subway door, and in the ending montage she clears it and she gets away from Atsu, who is now chasing her, because in this sort of reality Atsu's still alive. Or maybe that happened earlier, which is confusing, or maybe God gave him a second chance and brought him back as well. But that was one of the reasons why they were kind of afraid to go back into the world, because the police would be after them for killing somebody, and the Yakuza would be after them for killing a Yakuza.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of wonder if this film would be an interesting rewatch, or if you'd notice something new every time you watched it again, especially in those montages.
Potentially.
If you'd get more out of it.
I have to pause every 2 seconds to see if I saw anything in the montage because it's flashing by so fast.
Or just pause it to process for a second.
The second time the montage shows up, I was paying so much attention to be like, I'm looking for clues. I'm looking for hints. I'm looking for anything. And I got a couple of them, but it was very difficult to focus because it's flashing by so fast.
It's really fast.
Of all of these characters' lives. And it's just difficult to intake all of the information that's being shown on screen. So it's tough, dude. Can you explain to me, and I thought that I kind of got it, but that scene where the 3 kids are at the amusement park?
Oh, I couldn't explain that to you at all. I mean, it was during the movie, I stopped paying attention for 1 second, and everything had suddenly switched over to being, because there's these like 3 kind of like superhero characters, and one of them seems to have this power where they're able to like turn back time, which to me again is a reset button. And we see the old man sometimes with a clock on his belly, and he had a kid's lunchbox that he was storing drugs in, or money, for this drug exchange back when he was a criminal outside of the Whale in his younger days. And I think the character on the lunchbox is that same sort of like superhero-y anime character that kind of looks like Astro Boy a little bit. And at the time when I was like, how did we get here? You thought it was their imagination kind of running wild when they're kind of telling each other stories to keep themselves entertained about if he were to open an amusement park or...
Yeah, because Nishi's dream is like he wants to be a manga artist. So I thought this was like his future, like imagination dream scenario that's going to happen, where he becomes such a large manga artist that he gets to open an amusement park, and all these kids are looking up to him like he's their hero, and he can treat them to these lavish dinners. And they're like, well, how are we going to pay for this? He's like, don't worry about it. Just grow up and be a good man or whatever. And that, like, number one, that scene just comes out of nowhere, and then it leaves out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was really, really sudden. I kind of feel like they could have used some of the surrealism to better effect. I think that they use it so much that it feels like it's happening throughout the movie. But, if they toned it down in some places and made it, stronger while they were inside of the Whale, for example, then you get the impression like, oh, they're kind of losing it.
Yeah.
And it would kind of go towards what was going on as part of the plot and would support it. But yeah, the whole thing ends up being a really bizarre mix of things, which can be sometimes exciting, sometimes completely exhausting.
At the end of the movie, when they reset it, and it's that one, the hair Yakuza guy, and just in the car again.
Yeah.
I thought that it was going to be like that cop-out bullshit of like, this was all just in his imagination. And that was his mind game. Or like, that's where his imagination took him with like all the possible scenarios that this whole trying to catch Mion was going to lead to. But that was not it at all.
No, not at all.
That was not it at all.
Oh, God. Is there anything else you want to say about this movie before we move into the amp numbers?
Yeah, what was your favorite scene of Mind Game?
I don't know. I honestly feel like throughout talking about it, we've talked about all of the scenes that I liked. I think you can either think of this movie as being 3 scenes and only 3 scenes, or you can think of it as 128.5 scenes. You know?
Yeah.
Because, you know, everything in the whale could just be like one scene essentially. Or you can talk about every 45-second long, you know, scene that involves, you know, just pure insanity. I mean, I thought that the sex scene was actually very cool. Like in the end, there's a part, you know, where Yang cuts all of her hair off, and she's like, "All right, let's go fucking enjoy ourselves." And I guess she's an artist. We find out later in the montage that she had gotten an art show, and you know, so that's what she wants to do, maybe, or maybe she discovered her artistic talent by doing all of the you know, experimental art she was doing inside of the whale. But there's a scene where, I mean, who knows what's going on, but she has all these balloons on different parts of her body, and that was bizarre. She's kind of has one on her crotch and almost looks like a really fat penis, and she's like using her hips to hit somebody on the head with it. But then she walks off and starts like dousing herself with paint and then throwing herself against like a sail or something. And each time it goes back to her and she's dousing herself with a different color of paint. But I thought the animation of that was really beautiful. And then watching her run and throw her body up against this thing and seeing what different shape it did. I liked that each time she threw her body against the sail, it was a slightly different, you know, body shape splatter. Like there was a lot of thought that like went into that. And then they took the sail and ran around with it, or, you know, but it didn't really go anywhere. But like, that's the only thing that stands out to me that I was like watching and going, I don't know what's going on, but that's animated beautifully.
Yeah, well, it also looks like, so she was practicing dance while they were in the whale, and in the ending montage and like flash, like it looks like she accomplished every single thing known to man. Like she had an art show, she became a bodybuilder, it looked like.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like she was in some kind of fitness competition, and then she was like a gym, like she was doing all kinds of shit in that ending montage, and it was like, damn, Yang, it didn't. Like, I mean, she was the one that was like, I need this as a reset to my life because I won't have all these dreams that I need to accomplish. Like Nishi didn't seem like he did too much of anything after they got out of the whale.
Don't see much with him in that final montage, weirdly. You see a lot with Mion. You see a lot with Yang. You don't see much of Nishi. You do see, you know, a little bit with the Yakuza, and you see a little bit with Gramps. But he's weirdly missing. Yeah. Except for his childhood stuff. And I don't know if that's supposed to suggest that maybe he dies for realsies coming out of the whale. Or maybe, like, I don't know if it showed really that he ends up with Mion. I can't really remember. But yeah, I think especially with what you see happen with Yang, you can tell that this film is all about the sort of carpe diem. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you only have so much time. So, you know, what are you waiting for? You know, do what you want to do. Be brave. Take those moments that you've got and do something with them. Did you find this inspiring?
No.
There
was a moment. Tell me if you had this moment.
Okay.
Because there was a moment when they were inside of the whale. They were inside of the whale for a long time.
80% of this film.
Where at a certain point, I was like, how did we get here? Oh, right. They're being chased by Yakuza because a Yakuza was trying to rape a lady and they killed the guy that was trying to rape a lady. And it was because he didn't want to confess his love to her. And I was like, and now we're in this like, that was such a violent and crazy start to this movie. Yeah. And then the whale stuff was like, it was kind of like much more lighthearted.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was way more lighthearted.
Wait a minute, how did we get here again? And I was like, oh yeah, this horrific guy getting shot up the butthole into the brain and God giving him a second chance. Like I thought at the end of the movie, God would have appeared again and been like, you really did it, Nishi, or something. Oh yeah,
that he would have had a moment again.
Yeah,
I guess
like
he's
God
too
would
busy
have
dating or whatever.
Yeah, like I thought that the God thing would like there would have been a bookend or something. But I mean, this book ended with montages. But I thought that God would have looked down. You would have seen the like God in the clouds as the leopard or whatever he was at the end. He's like, you really did. I'm really proud of you, Nishi, or something. But God doesn't show up again.
No, God does not show up again. I mean, we didn't really talk about the way God shows up in the first place, except that he's abusive. But just with him changing constantly, it's kind of nice because he kind of goes like, "Oh, you can't decide what I am," you know.
Yeah.
And so he's like constantly popping into different, you know, forms and figures. And I think that's a great way to deal with the idea of what God looks like, because, you know, people will attempt it, and for the most part, it's like, oh, he's just a voice,
Yeah.
you know,
Or as an old man or whatever.
Old man, yeah.
Or Morgan Freeman.
yeah, just a dude.
But I just distinctly remember being inside the whale with them and being like, wait a minute. Didn't this movie start out with like a horrific rape scene? And now we're here?
Yeah.
This is insanity. Like the whale parts felt like a completely different movie than what we saw at the beginning. And I was just like, this is wild, dude.
This film is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm ready to amp it up if you're ready to amp it up.
Yeah, let's do it.
You go first.
Okay. I'm giving Mind Game a 7.
Okay.
And I think this film has a lot to offer in terms of some talking points and some very interesting animation. One thing that I didn't mention that I really loved, and we see in this twice, is it animates what it looks like when you're having a hard time not crying.
Mm-hmm.
And the vision starts to blur as like tears start to build up in your eyes. And there's a couple of parts where it does that. And it does it so beautifully. And there's just these moments where it animates something where you're like, that's exactly what that looks like. And I haven't seen that animated before. And I think that's what's so interesting about animation. Animation is illustration.
Mm-hmm.
An illustration, it's moving, and it's the ideas of how things feel or how things look. And it's not doing it for the most part throughout in a way that is realism in any sense. But sometimes that surrealism gets closer to what something feels like than the realism. You know, and this missed some marks for me. It's not going to be on my list of favorite films. Would I rewatch this? Absolutely, because I kind of want to go back and understand more, you know, on a second viewing, or see, you know, what comes up for me. Will I do it soon? No. But I'd like to do it eventually. Is it anywhere near as enjoyable as his other films that we've watched? I don't think so. I have a feeling your score is going to be real low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 2 out of 11.
Yeah, I saw that coming.
I'm surprised that yours is a 7.
Yeah, I was surprised too, because I didn't start out that way.
2 out of 11.
Yeah.
I didn't like a lot of the animation. It just didn't seem finished at certain points.
Yeah.
Like the rotoscope was horrifying. And then like just so little of it made cohesive sense. And then there was just, like I said at the beginning, it just felt self-indulgent and wankery. Like it just felt like a guy being like, look at all this shit that I can do. I'll show you. You like crazy? I'll show you crazy. And then he's trying to like outdo like a Satoshi Kon thing. He's like, oh, you like that? Well, check out this. And
Yeah,
get
like
so experimental.
like he could have a dick measuring contest with David Lynch.
Yeah, like I just don't. That doesn't jive with me. This is apparently based off of like a manga or something.
Okay.
But I mean, there were some moments that were like funny. There were some moments where it was like, okay, I get what you're going for there.
And that's what got it up to a 2.
Yeah, but then there was just so many other where like that scene when they're at the amusement park where I'm like, can you explain that? It's like, I mean, I gave it my best to try and explain that scene. Like, but I just saw myself looking over at how much of the movie was left for so many times and just being like, God damn, we're still only halfway through this movie. Like, and yeah, I just didn't like it at all. It was not fun. This was a chore.
Yeah, I did get that.
And that's that, everybody.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. This has been our episode on Mind Games. Sorry, everyone that gave this a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes for my trashing of it. But, whatever. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at the Anime Movie Podcast. Go to our YouTube channel. Just look for the Anime Movie Podcast. Subscribe. We post full podcasts and clips from the podcast that are animated and stuff, and they show you exactly what we're talking about if we can find the clips to download on YouTube and stuff. Email in the Anime Movie Podcast at gmail.com. Go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Rate and review. Subscribe. All that good stuff. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.